Hi everyone, Sean Ruggiero, President and Founder of SafeMoneySmart.org. I'm here to continue the training on the Estate Planning Lead by Social Insurance Leads. Estate Planning Lead, if you want to know a little bit more about it, review the first couple videos in this series and find out what a unique and powerful lead this is that SocialInsuranceLeads.com is producing. Just a little bit of a learning curve on how we pivot on these opportunities and create solutions for the client and sales for you. This is the last sales opportunity I'm going to review, the healthcare cost and Medicare sale. Okay, so we're going to lump these together here. Very, very straightforward. All right, so I'm sitting down here hypothetically with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I've completed the Final Wishes Guide. I've also informed them and hand them a copy of the free will kit. And I say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'll be emailing you an electronic copy, and I'll be CCing your loved ones, your daughter, your two sons, and then your best friend, Nancy, who you asked me to send copies to. Again, quick pause, quick tangent. Those are additional leads that we're going to have because we're sending them a copy of what we did, and we're offering to provide that exact same free service for them. So one lead can become 5, can become 25 leads, and not in a hokey or do you know anyone else I can help way, but in a straightforward, I am sending a copy of this lead, of this Final Wishes Guide, because Mr. and Mrs. Smith have asked me to. Would you like me to provide the same exact service for you? It's a great multiplier, and it's unique to the estate planning lead. So let's understand something. Most people don't have long-term care insurance. These leads are designed for people age 50, 55, and up. So purchasing long-term care insurance at that point, if you're someone who sells it, can be a little bit more of a challenge in the underwriting and in the cost. But by all means, if you have the ability to sell it, if that's what you sell, if that's a market that you're in, then you can sell long-term care insurance. But most people don't have it, so we're going to look at some alternatives to long-term care insurance. So in this case, Mr. Smith is 65, Mrs. Smith is 64. I've completed the Final Wishes Guide. I've explained to them that I'm going to be emailing their copy and sending a copy also to their loved ones so they will have it on file. And I'm going to now raise up my concern. And keep in mind, you can have multiple sales opportunities. You could have a couple of concerns. You would simply state like this: Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I will be sending this out to the people that you requested. You'll get a digital copy yourself. But I have a few concerns here, okay? The first concern is we have nothing to protect your administrator or your executor. And you said that would be your daughter, Susan. So I go into that whole pitch, and that's one of our sales opportunities. The second concern I have is you have nothing to offset late in life healthcare costs, whether it be long-term care, in-home care, whatever that might be. You really have no contingency set up. And that can really screw up an estate plan faster than anything else. So let's talk about some ways that we can fix that. I'm probably going to educate them, and I did this in an earlier training module, about the retirement spending smile. So if we look over here and you start retirement at, say, 65, you're going to be spending a lot more because you're spending more time traveling. You're doing those things you wanted to do when you couldn't, when you were working. It's like a long weekend, right? But as you get older, you slow down, that spending also comes way down until the very end, 85, 90 years old. Why does it spike up? Healthcare costs, end-of-life healthcare, long-term care, in-home care, whatever it might be. And that's a big fear for people. So how do we offset these healthcare costs for you, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Well, it's probably, now this is assuming that you don't sell long-term care insurance, and it's probably a fairly safe comment too. At age 65, it's probably not feasible for you to purchase long-term care insurance right now. But good news is there are options. Now, on the back here, we have completed their inventory of assets. And in that inventory of assets, we understand two things. One, what retirement accounts they have. Let's say they have an IRA for $400,000. And what life insurance they have. Let's say they have a term insurance policy that is expiring. We can attack this either way. They could have either of those, both of those, doesn't matter. We have two ways to attack it. One way we can solve this problem, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, is through the use of something called a long-term care rider or alternative rider in one of today's FIAs or fixed index annuities. Now, I'm just using that as an example because those are the ones that have probably the best long-term care riders that I've seen in the market. And so I can go ahead and, if I'm fluent in it, I can work it up, or I can say, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, do you have a copy of that statement, your most recent statement on that IRA? I'm going to take it back, work some numbers, and then come back to you tomorrow and show you some of the options we have to help offset that cost. And what I'm talking about here is if they have this $400,000 IRA, maybe I take $100,000 and I put it in an annuity, and there's plenty of income annuities out there. There's plenty of growth annuities that have long-term care alternative riders, things that will amplify a payment, double a payment for up to, say, 5 years if the person is confined in a nursing home. Things that will trigger certain, based on certain events, they will trigger additional cash that can be used for long-term care. So that's an example of using an annuity with a long-term care rider alternative to solve this end-of-life unknown healthcare cost. The other thing we can do is we can offer it through life insurance, okay? Not all companies offer this, but some or many will offer what are called living benefits. So what I can do is I can make a recommendation. Let's say they don't want to touch the IRA, or it's definitely being used for their retirement spending, and they don't have an insurance policy, or they have a term insurance policy, something that wouldn't be offering this. We can go ahead and say, I have a solution for you. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'm very concerned about not having any sort of plan to cover end-of-life healthcare costs, these unknown healthcare costs. And I explain that spending smile, that retirement spending smile, and it's this section over here that we're concerned with. Well, the good news is we have a solution, okay? What we have is we have certain life insurance policies, permanent policies, that are very affordable and can offer what's called living benefits. Now, a living benefit, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, is something that if you are critically ill, you have a terminal illness, you can actually take money from it before you die. See, how helpful is that for not screwing up an estate plan, for not taking away income that you need for Mrs. Smith when you pass first, Mr. Smith? And so in this case, and I'm sure you probably know plenty of companies that offer these living benefits, instead of attacking an annuity or helping on an annuity through the IRA, or if they do not have any retirement savings, we can simply write an affordable life insurance policy, $100,000, $200,000. If the person's reasonably healthy at age 65, you can find a GUL out there that is quite affordable. And now they have a $100,000 to $200,000 bucket that they can draw from if they are experiencing critical illness or terminal illness, which is why they would need this end-of-life care. So we have long-term care insurance, obviously, but in most cases with an older person who won't be able to get long-term care insurance because it would be out of the feasibility range, we're going to solve it through either an annuity with a long-term care pseudo benefit, right, an alternative benefit to long-term care, meaning it is not long-term care insurance. Make sure you're telling them that, but it does offer some of the same solutions at the end of life to offset that spike in spending, or through living benefits on a whole life policy. Those are the two ways that we're going to attack it. The final thing here is a very obvious thing. If you have a health insurance license and you sell Medicare supplements or Medicare Advantage, beautiful opportunity. Did they fill out the free will and final wishes guide so they could get a Medicare quote? They did not. But are they 64 and a half or older? Quite possibly. Absolutely a good time. With open enrollment being longer than ever, this is a great time to price them out. It's a commoditized sale. It's a numbers game, but you have now put yourself in yet another person who can go ahead and give you a quote, or you can give them a quote for Medicare and maybe shift them from one plan to the other based on their needs, maybe shift them from an Advantage to a Sup or vice versa based on their needs or based on pricing alone. And guess what? You can mention that when you're sending out to their loved ones. Because how many of these people will be their children? Probably quite a few of them. But how many will be their best friend, will be acquaintances that they know that are also in their 60s and need to have their Med Sup repriced? You can mention that also. It's just another thing that you can do to take advantage of this. So when we look at the estate planning lead, we're looking at so many sales opportunities. All you have to be able to do is be efficient at going through this final wishes guide, and be efficient at making recommendations. And these recommendations come from your concern. That's where they come from. I've completed this final wishes guide, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'm going to go ahead and email it to you and give a copy to your loved ones so they have something on file when that time comes. But there are a couple things that give me concern. And that's where we go into the sales opportunities. So practice that. Listen to it. You know, we wouldn't go out as professional basketball players and not practice shooting, dribbling, or whatever it might be. So don't go out as a professional insurance salesperson and not practice this. It's very easy to do. You can watch these videos numerous times. And the first 3, 4, 5, you might stumble a little bit. But trust me, from that point on, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're not out there competing, because no one else is sending these leads out. This is a very exclusive lead. It goes only to you from social insurance leads. And now you're in there providing a true service, not just trying to bang people over the head for a sale. So once you complete that service, your recommendations are going to carry a lot of weight. So rehearse this, practice this, go in there. There's multiple sales opportunities, and every time you sit down, some people are going to have, remember, less money, some people are going to have more money. But that bulk of people you'll be able to help as long as you're efficient, stick to it, and believe in what you're doing. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.